Good morning, wherever you are. I hope it's morning. It's morning here, so I said good morning. This is Chef Ken, and as you can hear, maybe some music over here. Artie Shaw with Frenzy, a little jazz, and that gets my morning going. I hope it gets yours going too. What I'm going to talk about today is fun. We're going to have fun. I thought this morning, I was just thinking of, for some reason, I've got a quote. I love these all quotes that I like, and there was a quote by Joe DiMaggio, and he retired in 1951, the great DiMaggio. He retired from baseball in 1951, and he was being interviewed, and they said, you're not that old yet, why are you retiring? He said, well, baseball is not fun anymore. And when it's not fun, it's no longer a game. So he retired. And you can say that about anything. If you're not enjoying it, you should probably try to find something you enjoy. And cooking is fun. If it's not fun for you, hopefully you can learn how easy it is and how much fun it is and how creative it is. If that doesn't work for you, then, go about getting your, those things you buy. They come and give you all the ingredients and tell you how to put it together like a puzzle. That's fine. But if you want to be creative, have fun, then this jazz cooking is for you. And today, as always, we have no script, we have no plan, we're just winging it. So what we're going to do today is we're going to make two breads out of one dough, basically. Unique breads. One is ciabatta, and the other one is focaccia. And they're both lean doughs, which means there's really not much in them but flour and water. And they're very, very high hydration. And as we get into it, we'll talk again more about the hydration, the ratios, and all that. But first, I just want to let you know that they're very wet doughs, and the way they're done is everything I do is measured by weight. When any baker in any bakery does every single thing by weight. You need water in something, you don't put a cup or a quart or a gallon. You put it by weight. You do it by grams. So grams make baking easy. Whenever I bake bread, I tend to use, as a rule of thumb, I start with roughly 1,000 grams of flour. That'll roughly, depending on the ratio, give you roughly 2 pounds of dough. Not a lot of dough. 1,000 sounds like a lot, especially to Americans. You say 1,000 ounces or pounds, that's a lot. Grams, not so much. So I start with 1,000. But before we even get into that, what we need to do is make a starter. Now, we're not talking about a natural starter, sourdough starter. That's something for another time. I'm not the biggest fan of it. For that little taste, you can always add pickle juice or sauerkraut juice or sour cream or yogurt. It's not that big of a health thing, and it's a lot of work. And the thing about sourdoughs is they fail a lot. So I like instant yeast. It works every time. So you buy the instant yeast, you don't have to dissolve it. I remember when I first learned with my grandmother the cake yeast, dissolving it in the water and watching it bloom. Very exciting, but you get the exact same results for this and just put it right in. All right, so let's go back now. We're gonna talk about the doughs. I'm gonna try to make enough so that we have 2 batches of 1,000 grams each. So when I start with 1,000 gram bread dough recipe, I make a Polish. That's a starter. Invented, that's a French word for Polish. Started by a Polish baker. And the French took it over and said, we're gonna call it Polish. So it's an odd word, but it's commonly used. There's another starter called a biga, which is Italian, a biga. Make a biga starter. A biga is almost the same, but it's not quite as hydrated. The hydration on a Polish is 100%. Now this is a little bit about hydration again. So if I start with 200 grams of flour. 200 grams of flour for 100% hydration, very simple. 100% is 100% equal to that is 100 grams of water. So I would then have 200 grams of flour and 200 grams of water. That's 100% hydration. So we're going to do that, but since we're making 2 batches at once, I'm going to go with 400 grams of flour, 400 grams of water, and then yeast. Now yeast, you can use, this package of yeast is maybe less than half full. I'm going to use that or less. You don't have to, you can use 2 grams, 4 grams, 8 grams. You don't have to use a lot. I forget what each of these is. I think it's like 15 grams, something like that. You don't need that much. And this is for a big batch. What it takes then, when you use only a little pinch, just a pinch is good. When you use a pinch, it works the same way. It's just one thing different. When you use a little, it takes more time. The yeast, as the yeast grows and it breeds more yeast and it gets larger, it just takes time. But you get the same effect. The difference is it takes a long time. Long time means better gluten development and better enzymes and flavor development. That's where your sourdoughs come in. They take a long time. Sourdoughs were made, they're nothing new. They never had packaged yeast 200 years ago. They had, everything was a sourdough. It came from a natural starter. So everything had that sour taste. We're not gonna get a sour taste, it's not gonna go that long, but we will get those enzymes that turn some of that starch into sugar. Not a lot, it doesn't end up like the Danish, but it does have a slight tang of sugar in it, and you'll see the sugar in the dough when it bakes. We'll show it to you. Anyway, this is all fascinating. And the thing that comes down to is everybody says, I can't make my own bread. It takes too long. It takes too much time. It's too much work. Well, I'm here to tell you it's no work and no time. It takes very, very little effort, very, very little time. But it takes a day or 2 days sometimes to make it. But the actual amount of work you put into it is virtually nothing. And I never timed it, but we're gonna time it today. So I'm gonna take a little break, 1 second here, while my producer, my daughter Katie, gets ready with a timer. Hey, Chef Ken, I'm back again, and it's still morning, so good morning. Fun, I'm gonna have fun. If it's not fun, don't do it. Go buy some crappy fat food full of salt and stuff. You want to know what you're cooking, what you have. So we're starting with this bread that I talked about, 2 breads, ciabatta, and the one I always forget. What's the name again?
Focaccia.
Focaccia. I'm old. I forget the names. Focaccia. We made a focaccia the other night. I'll tell you, it'll blow your mind. It was so good. But the best thing about it was easy. Katie, will you come over here a second with Gabby? Just tell me how easy it was.
So easy.
She's saying so easy over there. She's shy. Gabby's not shy. That's my granddaughter. But we're here in Bothell, Washington. My wife and I, my wife Patty, of 50 plus years, are retired in Florida. And we visit up here in Bothell, Washington. And my daughter has got me going on these videos. We have fun, but we're not up here that often. So come over here, why don't you say hi? Producer? Gabby? Say hi. Say hi, Aaron. What are we making? Focaccia, you said it right. That's Katie and the granddaughter Gabby. Yay. All right, we're going to continue. So we talked about making this poolish. The poolish, I talked about, you know, what it came from and how it came from. But the most important thing right now is we're working with weight, always with weight. Got a scale, probably $15, right? All right, so I'm going to put a bowl on it, start it up. Make sure it's set for grams. It's set for grams. Usually go with 200 for 1,000. 200 grams of flour poolish for 1,000 grams. We're going to end up making 2,000 grams because we're going to have 2 batches of dough. We may even get some pizza dough out of it too. So, all right. So I've got this the scale already. I haven't done any work yet. I'm not going to count putting stuff together because I could have done it over there where it is and it wouldn't have been any work. So we're going to set the timer now. We're going to see how long this takes, and we're going to time it all the way through the process to see how much actual time was needed to work on making this dough. And don't forget, we're making 2 large batches. So that's part of it too. If you're making 1 smaller batch, it would go faster. So we're gonna start the timer, and I've got the scale set. I'm gonna go with, like I said, 400 grams. Now this is a cup measure. I have no idea. I know each cup is about 5 ounces, which is a little over 100 grams. So it's gonna be a lot of these. not a lot of these, because there's 200, 300, 400. All right, and I got 400. Now I'm going to put the yeast in. Remember I said instant yeast. And I'm going to put it in my hand so I know how much there is. And then I'll see if it weighs. It may not even measure it. I'm going to Z out the scale. Zing out means you make it to 0. And I'm going to put this much yeast in. It did not register a gram. I can put a little more. And that's all that's in this. 1 gram. We have 1 gram, okay? Time is still running. Now I need 400. I'll Z it out again. 400 grams of water. As we talk, my daughter has an egg over here incubating for emu. And the reason I'm bringing it up is because the song, one of my favorite old jazz tunes by Bix Beiderbecke, is called Ostrich Walk. Okay, I got 401 gram of yeast, and I'm going to mix it. Now, all I said, I'm mixing it. I'm not kneading it. I'm not putting it in a mixer. I'm not making sure of anything other than getting most of the lumps, not even all of them. You know how when you make pancake batter or muffins, you're not worried about getting all those lumps out? Same thing here. Okay, what we have here is what's known as a shaggy mess, okay? Timer off. All right, so that's that. Timer's done. Not going to count washing the fork or anything. So I'm going to put a lid on this. It's cool up here. I'm going to try to put it in a place where it's a little warm. Her oven and my son's oven in Philadelphia or Wilmington, Delaware, they have an option for proofing on it. I don't want to put it in proof. That's too fast. I want it to take time. Again, we're not counting this because I'm not doing anything. I'm just talking. So I'm going to put a lid on this, not tight. It's a plastic lid, but I'll leave it open a little crack. And we're just going to let this brew. And it brews. And you keep checking that. I have no idea how long it's going to take. It is now, what time is it right now? It's 10 a.m. here. I imagine I won't check it till 4 this afternoon, and I doubt it'll be ready. And then what happens is when it comes to about, again, no effort, I'm just going to look at it. If I think it needs longer, then I'll wait. And then if I go to bed at 7, 8 o'clock, I look at it, and it's not doing much, I can leave it out all night. If it's doing quite a bit, I'll put it in the fridge. If for some reason it's ready, I can make the dough, but I don't think it'll be ready today. That's why sometimes it takes 2 days. But remember, as it works, enzymes, turning, the yeast is eating all of that starch. And that starch, like me being a diabetic, I know when I eat starch, what does it turn to? Sugar. So that's going to turn that to sugar. Again, it doesn't make it sweet, but it makes it just slightly so it has, instead of being the Walmart, 79-cent loaf of Italian bread that tastes like flour and water, it tastes more like a baguette that has that little glistening sugar in it and that taste. So that enzymes do that. So that's it. We'll put this away for now, and I'll come back and see you whenever the next time I do something. Have fun. Hi, Chef Ken back again, Culinary Jazz. We're going to pick up where we left before on our breads that we're making. We're working on 2 doughs at the same time because they're basically the same formulas. When I say formula, bakers use formulas. When I start talking about cooking, I'm going to tell you that, I'm going to repeat that I have never in my life, in over 35 years in the kitchen cooking, written down a recipe. I mean, I'm sure I've written them down, but I never kept them and used them. I like to be creative, make something new, and then in my head I know how it goes. If I have to teach somebody how to make it, I said, here's how you make it. But if you want to change it a little, change it a little. So, but in baking, it's chemistry, more chemistry is involved, and you kind of have to have something to follow. So in baking, professional baking, they don't have recipes, they have formulas. So we're talking about the formula of making lean bread doughs, and it's done all in grams on scales. Get a scale, and we're making 2, and I said that I work always, generally I try to go on a basis of 1,000 grams of flour, so that in baking, every single thing, the flour is home base. That's your cornerstone is the flour, and everything else is a percentage off of that, so that you can increase your formula, decrease your formula very easy, and remember it very easily. So I work off the 1,000 grams of flour. So we're making 2 different breads here, focaccia and ciabatta, very similar. They're lean doughs, which means they don't have eggs and butter and milk and sugar and all that stuff in it. They are basically flour and water, yeast, and salt. So we're gonna have a very high hydration. Normal hydration, say on a baguette, would be 65% hydration, 65% as opposed to the flour. So if I have 1,000 grams of flour and I'm making baguettes, I'd need 650 grams of water. If I were making bagels, I like a bagel that's real stiff, New York bagel, 55%. So if I have 1,000 grams of flour, I'm gonna have 550 grams of water. So now what we're making is a high, very high, so ratio, high hydration. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna have 85, maybe 88% hydration. And there's 2 of them we're making. And we started by making a poolish. Now our poolish is coming along here. It's only been about how long? About 4 hours or so?
Yeah.
Yeah, I thought it would take longer. I could let this go another 4 hours, but I want to get going on it. So it would probably be better to let it go a little more, but it's okay. I want to get going on this. So I'm going to make this one. I've already got 400 water and 400 flour in here. So each one of them is going to be 200 and 200, because that's 100% hydration for the poolish. So if I'm going to make this recipe, this formula, that is going to be 1,000 grams of flour, I'll be right back. So the formula is going to be 1,000 grams of flour. Now I've already got 200 in my poolish. So I subtracted 200 from the 1,000, and it comes up with how much? 800, right? So that was made with all-purpose flour. You can make any of these breads with just all-purpose flour. This is just gold medal all-purpose. I like King Arthur, but that's fine. Whatever. They're not that much of a difference. But then if you want a little more strength, a little more gluten, and gluten is a whole subject for another time. But bread flour is higher in gluten. Gluten is protein, and bread flour is going to be about 14% gluten. All-purpose is going to be about 12%. And then you get into pastry flours and things like that, it can be 9%. Very little gluten. But you want gluten, that gives you your structure. Gluten is made up of, I say it every time, I'll go quickly through it, 2 different proteins. Glutenin, which is kind of straight, and gliadin, which is kind of crooked. And they're there, little molecules that are floating around. And when you mix them with the flour, they float around. And then if you take that and, like kneading, you stretch it and stretch it and stretch it, they come together. Glutenin and gliadin. And then they make gluten. And that gluten is what's elastic. That's what retains the gases. Otherwise, it would just bubble away and you wouldn't have any structure to your bread. So that's one of the purposes of making the poolish. The poolish starts developing gluten, especially in an average gluten, an average protein flour like all-purpose. All right, so what we're going to do is I'm going to put in here, I'm Zing out this thing, and I'm going to put in here 1,000 grams minus 200. That's 800 grams of bread flour, right? All right, we got to time this starting now. We've been timing this. So right now I'm doing this. $800. I'm going to go a little over. I want to make it a little wetter. I'm going 850. Okay. All right. So then for that to that, I'm going to add. You know what? I'm going to go back to 800 on there. changed my mind. Isn't that nice? I can do that. 800. I'm going to Z it out again. So then the water has to be 850 minus 200, that's 650. So I'm going to put in 650 grams of flour. Water. Sorry. Age. The water is room temperature or warmer, not hot and not cold. We're coming up to it. 500, 650. Okay, then to that, I want to add my salt. Salt almost always is 2% of the flour. The flour was 1,000. 2% of 1,000 is 20. So I'm going to add 20 grams of salt. Working off this 1,000 is so easy. Okay. All right, the other thing I'm going to add here, now we are going to add more yeast. This is 7 ounces. This one packet, it's 7 ounces. So we're going to add that. And then I'm going to Z it out again. And I'm going to add my 400 grams of starter. Okay, that's in. All right, so now that that's in, I can mix it. I'm not using a mixer, I'm using the best mixer ever invented, right here. Now this one is going to be the ciabatta. And when I start the other one, when I do the other one, you'll see how it's slightly different. Not a lot, but slightly. So this is like making the poolish. You don't have to go crazy mixing. It's not like the old school where you mix it, put it in a mixer for 8 to 10 minutes or knead it for 12 minutes. No, we're just going to get the flour incorporated. That's all we have to do. And then we let the yeast and thyme develop the gluten. So we're going to get the same amount of gluten developed as if were kneading this. You'll hear the term all the time, no knead bread. This is no knead bread, which is the way bread was made hundreds of years ago. And you'll still see, if you go in the bakeries or the supermarkets, these big pans of dough, and they just fold it. They're not kneading it. They don't take it and beat it up. You do for certain breads, but not for most of these lean doughs. So all I'm doing is getting it mixed. Just like the poolish, it's a shaggy mess. And that's it for now. All right, timer off. And we'll see how much time we put in so far. How much did it time so far?
3 minutes, 36 seconds.
That's just this time. So 3 minutes plus the other was how
5.
much? 5. So 8 minutes we put in. All right, so that's that. Now again, just like the poolish, I'm going to try to put it someplace warm and keep an eye on it. And I'll tell you what it needs to be like when I come back to it. All right, so I'll be back in a few minutes. Hi, Chef Ken here with Culinary Jazz. I'm going to continue what we started this morning. We started several things this morning, but I've got to go on one. I'm going to turn the jazz down a little bit as much as I like it. I don't want it to be too loud. Bunny Berrigan right there for your listening pleasure. And we're going to make 2 lean doughs that were very wet doughs, high hydration, a lot of water as compared to the flour. And they're going to both, the reason I'm making 2 is because they're the same formulas, like the same recipes, almost identical, but they're very different in the end. All right, so we're working on 2 of them. We started a poolish, then we got that poolish, we cut it in half, and we made one of the doughs here, which is the ciabatta. The other dough, which is the, what is it called again?
Focaccia.
The focaccia. We put the poolish in the fridge, and we're going to make that one tomorrow. But I have to get going on this one because I made the dough and it started to get away from me before I could even explain to you what we have to do with it. So I'm going to give you a good look at this. And you can see that what we started with yesterday has like almost overtaken everything. It's filling this bowl way up. So let me just get, I just need a little bit of water. I'll get a little water. If you want to break where you can. So here we are, we've got our ciabatta dough. And I misspoke before when I said it makes 2 pounds. It makes 4 pounds of dough roughly when you're starting with 1,000 of flour. So what you do is after you mix that dough, you have to wait maybe a half hour or so. And then as it starts to rise, you need to fold, stretch and fold, stretch and fold. And you have to do that at least 3 times. I did it twice and it just started growing so fast. So I put it in the refrigerator so that I could slow it down and then I could do this. Now you see that? Remember that mess we had? Look at this. And what happens is that gluten, instead of you kneading it, just the growth from the yeast stretches it out and makes it into this beautiful, beautiful, silky dough. You can see how silky that is. I can pick it right up with my hand. So what you do is you stretch and fold it in. You stretch and fold it in. Every time you stretch and fold it, what's happening is you're developing gluten and you're also creating these bubbles. That's why a focaccia and a ciabatta are going to have those big holes in them. Even baguettes are going to have it to some extent because they're done the same way. If you were to knead this and knock all the air holes out of it, you're going to end up with a very dense dough. Not very dense, but more dense, like a bagel would be. And we don't want that. So that's my third stretch and fold. So now I would wait 10, 15 minutes. And here's where the difference is between the focaccia and the ciabatta. The ciabatta is now, we're going to change it from this wet dough that you can't even, just so sticky. And we're going to just take some flour and we're going to put some flour on the table or board, wherever you're working. And I'm going to flour my hands up pretty good. And see how easy it comes out of here now instead of sticking like it was doing before? All right, so what I'm going to do now is with this flour, I'm just going to do another same folding, but with flour. So we're working a little flour into it, not a lot, but a little flour. And then we're going to try to take this and keep folding it. One side to the other side to the other side. Keep that flour going. It's not going to absorb any more than you can put down, so. And try to keep enough flour so it doesn't stick. And then we're just going to pull it and get a skin on it. Pulling it like this with 2 hands. Keeping my hands floured. Get a nice skin on it. See that wet, messy dough you had before? Look at how nice and tight that is. When I went to cooking school, they said, you want to get it to look like a baby's behind. Soft and silky. All right, so then we would let that sit and we need this little resting time. What happens with gluten is as you work with gluten, the muscles tighten up. The gluten are the muscles and it tightens up and it wants to stretch back. It won't let you work it. You have to wait a little while. So we don't have that much time. We're not going to wait. So what I'm going to do is I've got my scale here. I'm going to Z out my scale. And just for my own self, I'm going to change it to ounces. Pounds and ounces. Make sure I got plenty of flour. So now I've got it to where there's 2 balls. Keep them floured. Same thing as with the 1 big ball, but they're just 2 smaller ones. Gonna try to form it into a loose ball. Nothing too fancy. Now, one's a little bigger than the other, I can tell you that already. That's 1 pound, 13 ounces. This one's going to be closer to 2 pounds. 2 pounds and a few ounces. So I'm just going to take a little bit off of Peter to pay Paul. Slip it underneath. We always try to weigh each thing we do, whether it's a cake or whatever. I made some burgers. I want to scale and make sure they're the same weight. And the same thing with these loaves of dough I'm going to make. This now is 2 pounds 3. And this one is almost there. So I'm going to take a little more off of this, and we should be right at about 2 pounds a piece. Okay. Still, it's a very wet dough. And you'll notice when you buy ciabatta, if you buy real ciabatta, not the machine-made stuff at the store, it's always got flour on it. Why does it have flour on it? Because look, you can't deal with it if you don't. Okay, so next what I'm going to do is I'm going to break it in half again. And I'm going to make 4 loaves. And I'm not too worried about them being the exact same weight this time. Okay, same thing. I'm going to fold them. Fold it. A rough rounding. Over here, we're going to fold. Get it to a rough rounding. Now, if it wasn't for all this flour, I'd just be all stuck together here, and we'd have real big problems. But as you learn to work with the dough, you'll find out what you can and can't do. Just takes experience. Okay, we got 4 loaves for ciabatta. All right, then you take what's called a little bench time, relax that gluten a little bit, usually 5 minutes or so. And then you do what's called, after that, we do what's called a pre-shake. So I'm just gonna get it, I want it to be a rectangle. And I don't want to pound it too much, but I just want to get it to where it's roughly going to be in that shape of that ciabatta, roughly, just the beginning of it. You could take and leave these just the way they are and make them, but they won't be as low as a ciabatta. So I'm going to want to stretch them a little more than this. Now again, we need to let them set a little bit and rest. Now, ciabattas aren't supposed to be pretty looking. You can't make a fancy knot out of it. You can't make a baguette out of it. What you're just trying to do here is trying to stretch it, pound it lightly. I'm not pounding it a lot. I'm just pounding it very little. And I'm going to put it on parchment paper. And I'm going to put that parchment paper so you see how it's like a ciabatta. Now, if you wanted to make ciabatta rolls out of this, very easy. You just cut it in 4 and you'd have ciabatta rolls. But we're not doing that. We're making ciabatta loaves, which we can then use to make sandwiches. And I'm going to put them on this sheet pan. Now, this sheet pan or cookie sheet is there, but it's not to bake on. We have it on parchment paper, and that way we can lift it off, and in a 550-degree oven, have a stone or as we have a metal pizza tray or a griddle we can put in there. So I'm going to put a griddle in there, and it's a convection oven, so any place in the oven is okay. And then I'm going to put the griddle in there. I'm going to put the other pizza pan, which is about 3/8 of an inch of steel. That gets very hot. You need that bottom heat. So what I'm going to do then is take them just by the parchment paper, lift them off, and put them on top of that. And then you don't really need steam in this because ciabattas, you're not looking for it to expand too much. You just want it to rise up. So, okay. This is number 2. And they're not going to be the same shape, and I don't care. One's a little thicker than the other, and I don't care. It's easy, but you can't do too much with this. All right, it's as easy as that, right? Just want to, you don't want to roll it, you don't want to rolling pin it, you don't want to pound it like a pizza dough. You just want to stretch it out. It's a little easier if you take a little time, but again, I don't have time on my side right here. And I like them when they're a little odd, like this little corner here. That makes me happy. And I got one more. And 4. 1 pound loaves. Now all we gotta do is let them rise. Now we could flour them pretty good, cover them with a cloth, put them in the fridge and do it tomorrow. But I'm not gonna do that. I'm gonna put them in the oven, let them proof in the oven at proof temperature, and then I'll take them out, get that oven at 550, pop them in there at 550, and then turn it down to about 500. And once they start getting really hot, turn it down to maybe 450 until they're done. Done. When is done? It's like the worst question you could ever ask a chef is, how long will it take? Or how long till it's done? How long? I don't know. I never know. I don't know how long it's going to take these. I can't say, wait 20 minutes, give them 3 bowls, wait 20 minutes, give them. I don't know. You don't know. Every day, every place, it's different. How long do they take to cook? I don't know. Till they're done. Emphatically, they're not done till they're done. So loaves like this, you tell by the color, you know what color you're looking for. And if you're concerned about it, especially with a big loaf or with anything, cakes and things, you're not sticking a toothpick in. Almost anything you're baking, you want it for baking, not steaks or meat. You want it to get to 190 degrees inside. That's fully cooked. So this would be 190 degrees. And then if you really want to have that crustier crust, turn the oven off and leave it in there. If you got a boule or a batard is simply something between a boule and a baguette. It's the same as the word bastard. It's French for bastard. It's in between. So one of those you want real crusty. You could take it right out of the oven when it's done, but then there's still a lot of moisture and steam in there. And then that steam releases to the outside. That's why it gets soft. So you have to just leave it in there, let it get good and dried out. That's a good and bad thing. It's gonna get stale on it faster, but it'll be delicious for that half a day that you're eating it. Okay, so that's it for ciabatta for now, until we bake it. And I'll be back when we bake.